Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about plot. You know, the string of events that we follow from the beginning of the story through to the end. There are a few really important moments in a plot that draws us through the story with our characters. The beginning of the story is also known as exposition. This part gets the story going. It tells us about the places and the people of the story. But we all know that this part of the story can get boring fast. Something needs to happen so the story can get more exciting. This event is called the Inciting Incident. This is basically fancy English talk for the events that makes the story really get going. From there, more and more events happen in what's called rising action. During the rising action, conflict and crises start to complicate the situation for our characters and increases the excitement. But this rising can't continue forever. At some point, everything needs to reach a high point. This turning point is known as the climax of the story. So, how do we know what the climax is? When do we know it's happening? Teachers like to say, at the most intense moment of the story, either an action or feeling is the climax. But let's get real. What does that actually mean? I want you to think about plot like it's a roller coaster. Exposition is when you're getting into the car and waiting for it to move. Then the inciting incident happens. And then the car starts to move slowly down the tracks. The rising action is that crawl where we slowly work up that first big hill. Do you get where I'm going here? So, with all that information, what do you think then is the climax of the story? Any guesses? If you guess the moment when the car stops at the top and it's just at the edge, your stomach is in your throat, you'd be right. The whole ride up, you know it's coming, but that doesn't make that little stop at the top any less intense. That's the same feeling that you have at the climax of the story. From there, everything reverses in what's called falling action. That makes sense, right? You rise to the climax and then you fall to the moment when everything comes together in the conclusion. This is also known as the resolution. So there was this guy called Freytag, and he came up with a name for this structure. So we call this Freytag's pyramid. For those of you who have studied Egyptian pyramids, you know that a pyramid has even sides. But this isn't the case for most stories. Usually the climax is closer to the end than the middle. But the idea, it still makes sense in general. So now you need to go take a look at the next book that you read and decide, what does the plot really mean? And why is it so important? Learn more about all the elements of literature and what makes a story great by clicking on the Elements of Literature playlist. If you want to stay in the loop on all of my videos, click subscribe now.